I will one day make an intro for this channel, but right now I don't have one. So what we're going to do is jump right into this, right? You know, I, man, I hope that you heard that piece just before I started, right? Man, tell me, please to God, please to God, tell me that somebody that's supposed to be pro-black that went to college, that knows black history, supposedly, right? That talks about the black community, knows the history of the civil rights. Please don't tell me that you looked at a video, not even read a book, look at a freaking video and found out the supposed U.S. history of the 20th century civil rights movement, because the first one happened actually in the 19th century, post-slavery. You had two. You had two bookends, right? 1865 to 1965. That's how come 1965 was so important, especially for voting rights. But please tell me that you didn't just discover that at your old age, man, which is in the 30s, about civil rights and the dates of when they designated what the civil rights era was. According to them, it began with Eisenhower and the Brown versus Board of Education. That was a seminal moment for civil rights, according to the United States. And it ended with the Kerner Commission in 1968 with Martin Luther King's death. Those two bookends, right? That's what they determined as the civil rights movement. The anti-war movement ended in 1970 with the Kent State era. It's when actually the anti-war movement actually really ended, for the most part, 1970, 1972. But please to God, tell me that you didn't just find this out, that you think that civil rights only lasted freaking 14 years. Clarence, please to God, tell me that you are not this dense. Please tell me that you're not this dense, man. Please tell me that I'm not wasting my time with somebody that's unknowledgeable, that doesn't know the basics. But besides that, let's get into it. If you actually know civil rights, if you actually read the freaking books, okay? Civil rights started really before slavery. They called it the anti-slavery period, but the civil rights era actually started in 1865. Okay, it actually lasted over 100 years. That's why they say from 1865 to 1965 is the whole entire civil rights movement. It wasn't just the end period. That was the end period. There's a long time in between, which is Jim Crow, Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Garvey, all those people in between was civil rights. The first civil rights action or protest, as they call it, the Pullman car porter strike back in the 1930s. One of the most successful strikes in the United States, pulled on by what they call it 10,000 black men named George. That was part of it. Black Wall Street was part of it. The Harlem Renaissance was part of it. Those are all part of the Civil Rights Movement. The Great Migration was part of it. Civil Rights Movement was not 14 years. Civil Rights Movement, just like feminist movement, didn't start in the 60s. Feminist movement didn't start with 60s when one book and moved its way up. It didn't. Feminist movement started in 1804, what they call a proto-feminist. The movement started in 1865. The movement really has not ended. Plessy versus Ferguson was a civil rights action. It failed, but it was a civil rights action. Much like the Rosa Parks sitting in a seat on the bus. Did the same thing in Plessy versus Ferguson. What are you talking about? It's over 100 years. So please tell me that you're much more depth and much more knowledgeable when you come up with these freaking theories than what you just showed here. And you're going to have nerve enough to put people's name in it. You ought to be embarrassed. The thing is, when I heard it, I was embarrassed for you. They say black people don't read, and you just solidified it. That's when I heard. I said, please tell me this brother reads. Please tell me this brother doesn't actually believe what he just said. Anyhow, let's move to the second piece. Talking about 16 years of Keisha, right? Okay, let's just give you that theory. Let's just give it to you. Just say that anti-Keisha is from 2007. Really, it wasn't even anti-Keisha. These were elite college educated black men talking about other elite college educated black women. That's where it started. It didn't start with what they call the lower decks. It started in the command chair, closer to the command chair, and not in the lower decks, as Star Trek would put it. Talking about officers instead of workers. Now, let's just say that it was Keisha, because Keisha really means the average working class and below working class black woman. Those are Keishas. But let's just give all black women, let's call it with 20 million black women named Keisha. Let's put it that way, okay? Let's just say that. 16 years of anti-Keisha. Fine, I'll grant you that. And counting, because it hasn't stopped yet. And counting, because trust and believe what you're trying to do with anti-black ministry, that bullshit will not fly and it doesn't work. It hasn't worked, hasn't even made a dent, has it yet, sir? All the voices, all the anti-black manosphere sources, all the other legislation, because trust and believe there's people that are over you that have way more education and way more money trying to do the exact same thing, have not even slowed it down. But let's just say you're correct with the 16 years. We'll give it that. Let's give it 17. Let's add this one. Let's say 17 of anti-Keisha. Fine. Okay, let's put it on one side. Let's put it over there. Okay. Anti-black man, anti-misandry, anti-Pookie and Ray Ray, anti-Jamal goes back to 1979. Remember, well, you don't read, but I'll tell you about it, right? Black Macho and the Black Macho and the myth of Superwoman, 1979. Remember that? For Colored Girls, 1979 came out the same year, right? That is planting the flag for anti-misandry, anti-black, anti-black male, anti-Jamal, anti-Ray Ray. From 1979 to 2005. Let's go from 1970 to 2007, because guess what? 2007 was YouTube where black men could respond. So how many years is that, sir? See if your math skills are up to par. 1979. Oh, do it with me. You work in the school system. Let's do it. Let's do some modern math. From 1979 to 1989 is 10. From 1989 to 1999 is 20. From 1999 to 2007, what is that, sir? That's 8. It's 28 years. 28 years. It's been out of balance that we have to make up for. So anti-Jamal, anti-Ray Ray, anti-black misandrist is 28 years, 29 years in the making, right? 28 years, right? So we have what? 16? We got another 13 years, man. We have another 13 years. So the imbalance, as you put it, black male suffrage, not 14 years, because guess what? Civil rights was non-gendered. Gender rights had nothing to do with gay people, had nothing to do with women, had nothing to do with men or children, right? Had to do with the whole community. And guess who made hay with it? Guess who made the most money out of it? Guess who got the biggest resources out of it? All the black people. Guess who got the biggest reward, bang for their buck out of the civil rights movement? It wasn't black men. Guess who it was? Black women. So how you get those two comparisons, I have no clue, man. How you draw those two things and pull this kind of idiotic bullshit out of your ass, I have no clue. It must be a joke. It has to be a joke. But guess what? It's a joke that's not even funny. And basically, you must be desperate because you pull this stuff. The thing is, I was cool with that. Okay. I was cool, even though it's a whack theory. Okay, fine, it's a whack theory. But my biggest thing, you don't know enough history to even pull this stuff off. And you try to address yourself like you're smarter. At least one thing I can say, man. I can say one thing about the old heads. You say whatever you want. Whatever you want about the old heads. One thing we had to do was read. One thing we had to do was research. We had to march our ass down to the library, look this stuff, and take hours, sometimes even days, sometimes even weeks to research one thing. And we had to be thorough because we only had so many sources. So we had to read things thoroughly. But one thing we did was actually read. You have stuff at your fingertips. And the only difference between you and knowledge is laziness, lazy thinking. I would have dissected the whole thing. The thing is, at some point, just like with the last video, at some point it gets redundant and it gets so silly that you might as well stop, because all you're doing is repeating the same thing, and I'm repeating the same argument. I don't want to take a whole hour to go through what I call dumb shit. Sharpen your argument. Make it make sense. Do some research for a change. Man, just don't look at a video and put that stuff up and put some harebrained cockamamie scheme up there. I remember back in I Love Lucy days, she put more thought into her schemes than you did. I've heard women put more thought into their harebrained schemes than you just did. They would not get up on here and repeat something as harebrained and half-assed as you did right there. Anyhow, that's all the time I got for you today, man. So this is Be Just Out, and I'll be sticking it to you on another video. Peace.